is a great pleasure to speak to you today, and I am just sorry that it is on Zoom and not in person, but I am going to talk about high intensity focused ultrasound and our experience in Oxford over the last 20 years. So this is from Confucia. And is it not delightful to have friends coming from distant quarters? And I have enjoyed so many trips to China over many years, but sadly at the moment, COVID prevents my journey, but I hope that I will be able to do it again shortly. So this comes from Oxford, a city of dreaming spires. And I know some of you have visited Oxford, and if you are able to, at any time, you would have a very warm welcome. So this is the Haifu group that we have been working with. Let me just go back to that and show you. On the left-hand side at the top is the first purpose-built HIFU unit, actually in Europe, I think, which was in the Churchill Hospital, which we had from 2002 to 2010. And we had the JC system. Now, although the bottom left-hand is not all HIFU, this is the Churchill Hospital and the new radiology department, and we have the JC 200 there. William Osler is a great fan of mine. He was Regius Professor of Medicine and said that diseases that harm require treatments that harm less. And an ancient saying is, first do no harm, primum non nocere. So I think HIFU follows Osler's principles. And I know that most of you are familiar with HIFU, so I don't need to describe it in much detail. But of course, we understand that ultrasound in tissue, you have a little bit of heat at the focal point, and we are normally interested in the image with diagnostic ultrasound. But with HIFU, the power goes up about 10,000 times, and it can lead to killing of surgery. So in Oxford, we have looked at many things. Fibroids, of course, are benign, but we have looked at other examples in cancer treatment, which I'm going to talk a little bit about today. I will mention fibroids as well. We've also been looking at targeted drug delivery in liver and in kidney, and there are some clinical treatments that have been funded often by grants. And in the experimental side, we have a large experimental HIFU unit in biomedical engineering, which is run by Professor Konstantin Kousios, looking at neuromodulation, looking at immunotherapy in mice, and also fat absorption. So when we first started HIFU in 2000, we had the first machine from Chongqing in China in the Western world, and we CE marked it, got European approval for it, looking at liver and kidney cancers, looking primarily at the safety and toxicity, and then at the performance of HIFU for liver and kidney tumors. We had 56 patients, and as you can see here, some were livers, some were kidneys, some were non-surgical treatments, which we looked at after HIFU with radiology, some were surgical, where we removed after HIFU and looked at the histology, and again, the same with the kidney. Very few side effects, as I'm sure you are all aware, occasionally blisters or skin burns, but very, very safe procedure. This is our team. This was the team in 2002. I am looking a bit younger there. This was the first patient we ever treated with HIFU, a lovely lady who had metastatic colon cancer. She knew she wasn't going to survive long term, but she allowed us to treat her liver secondary. And she, I think, is the first patient treated in Europe by HIFU, certainly on the Chongqing device. And here is a team, again, an early team with one of our leading persons, David Wild, who sadly died of a brain tumor some time ago. And my James Kennedy, who set it up with me, who's now changed direction and is a priest just north of Oxford. And myself, Tom Leslie, Professor Wu, that most of you I'm sure will know, who's still with us, and Roland Illing. So here is the paper that we wrote for the British Journal of Cancer in 2005, looking at the safety and feasibility for HIFU for a Western population on the basis of those studies. And we got the European Community's approval in June 2005. And now there are many HIFU centers around Europe. So we've had various clinical trials, extracorporeal, also done a bit of laparoscopic work as well, and some translational work, which I'll talk about. And here on some of our early patients, the ones that we completed, some couple had to be abandoned, but after 6 months, only one progressed to surgery, and a lot were under surveillance. These were the renal cell cancers. One had further RFA, radiofrequency ablation, and 3 had surgery. And here's one of the cases that we did, small tumor there. This was with, you can see the uptake there, 12 days after HIFU, the uptake has disappeared. And then again, at 6 months, at 1 year, and at 5 years post-HIFU, complete ablation, no vascular supply to that. Laparoscopic, we did look at and try. Of course, this is not invasive. This is invasive. This is, potentially minimally invasive, which in a sense takes away the benefits of HIFU. But we did look at this, and we treated this renal tumor here laparoscopically with HIFU and showed a lot of ablation of it. But we are not using that anymore because, as I say, it is not invasive. It is invasive, whereas HIFU, extracorporeal HIFU, is non-invasive. Now, one of the problems with kidney, well, there are 2 problems with kidney that we found. One is the ribs, so sometimes it's a little bit difficult to target it. But secondly, there is perinephric fat around the kidney. And on this CT scan, this dark area there is the fat around the kidney. One of the reasons why it's not been working so well in kidneys is that you get absorption of the HIFU energy by the fat. And that was one of the things that we then looked at, because we took 10 patients who were undergoing renal cancer surgery and we removed perinephric fat from them. And we transferred that into a saline water bath, and we looked at HIFU energy through the fat. And we found that depending on the density of the fat, the intensity decreased. So if the fat was 2 centimeters thick, the output was reduced to 58. And if it was 5 centimeters thick, then the output was reduced to 1/4. Now, with a kidney transplant, as you are probably aware, when you take a kidney out for transplantation, you remove the perinephric fat and you put it in the groin, so the ribs are not in the way. And we have had 2 patients with a tumor in a renal transplant, which we have treated with HIFU. And here is one of them, about a 4 centimeter tumor. And after treatment with HIFU, we had 90% ablation of the tumor. We did then remove the tumor, and there was a little rim of viable tumor left, but 90% of that had been ablated. So in a transplant, it does work much better for the kidney. I will talk very briefly about fibroids, although it's not a tumor. Of course, and China, I think, have treated more than anybody else in the world, HIFU for fibroids. And we are starting to treat more in this country. I'm sure these are familiar to you, the ablation post-HIFU in a fibroid patient. And We were greatly encouraged by your study in China, the 20-center study, which looked at 20 participating centers. And as a result of that, I'll just move through these fairly quickly, but I'm sure you're familiar with this. Of the 1,300 that had HIFU, 400 with hysterectomy, nearly 600 myomectomy, that the HIFU treatment was very successful. And that led to it being written up in the British Journal of Obstetrics and Gynecology, which was a great triumph on your part, helped to do this with this ideal, so-called ideal study, the idea, the development, the exploration, and then the long-term follow-up. And as a result of that, and also this study, which we did with much fewer patients in Oxford, just looking at about 12 patients after a year, with good results. But as a result of that, we were able to get this accepted by the National Institute of Clinical Excellence, NICE, for ultrasound guided HIFU for uterine fibroids in the UK. So that was a great step forward for HIFU in this country. Now, prostate is something that cannot be done on the JC200. We're really looking forward to potential developments in the prostate area from China. But at the moment, we've been using the Sonoblate and the Abloferm system, which is transrectal. And there are a number of studies showing effects that are as good as other localized treatments. It's now been approved in the United States. And I think that if one's able to improve the HIFU treatment for prostate cancer, it just could have a major, major impact in the surgical treatment of prostate cancer in the world. So I think at the moment, as far as surgery goes, you need to treat about 30 patients to save one person's life, and you get quite a lot of morbidity in terms of incontinence and erectile dysfunction. So a good HIFU treatment of prostate cancer, I think, could revolutionize the treatment of prostate cancer around the world. So we've also looked at sacral chordomas. I'm sorry if you cannot quite see the title because of the screen sharing thing. I'm not sure if you can or not, but anyway, this is a patient with sacral chordomas. She had these very large, although they're theoretically benign, they're locally invasive, and she was unable to sit down. And with 2 treatments of HIFU, we got a lot, didn't cure her, but got a lot of ablation of these and made her pain-free and able to sit down afterwards. Here again, beforehand, afterhand with one treatment, and then the other one, and here both of them with a lot of ablation. So very successful for that. And this was written up in the neurosurgical journal as in the UK. So again, and we're hoping to do another big study looking at sacral chordomas. The other very interesting area is this, in targeted drug delivery. So here, you don't use HIFU for ablation, but you use it in a slightly more diffuse way just to increase the temperature of, for example, a tumor. So we've been looking at colorectal metastases in the liver and just using HIFU to heat up the tumor itself and hypothermia over the tumor. And then what we're doing is we are putting some doxorubicin, cytotoxic agents, into liposomes. So these liposomes, a little bit like butter, are heat sensitive. So they're stable at 37 degrees centigrade, but they break open at 42 degrees centigrade. So you put doxycycline into the middle of these, and then when the temperature reaches 42 degrees centigrade, the liposomes break open and you get targeted delivery of the drug to that particular area. So you get a much higher dose of the chemotherapeutic agent directly into the tumor. And a colleague, Konstantin Kousios, and my colleague Paul Lyon were doing this work. He did it for his PhD thesis. And so what they were doing was that they were biopsying the tumor to start with, and then measuring it, they were measuring the temperature of it, putting THERMODOX into the peripheral circulation, and then heating up the tumor. And then as the drug passed through, it broke open and you got targeted drug delivery. So you got enhanced delivery, 2 to 9-fold increase in the tumor, and got a good response. So here are the liver tumors, and here is the 16 days. This is before treatment, and after treatment, here you can see an area that is no longer taking up the blood supply, that has been killed basically, and here you see it's been killed by the cytotoxic agent. So a very good study, radiological ablation, well, chemotherapeutic ablation of the tumor. And this was written up in the Lancet Oncology in 2018 as a phase 1 clinical trial, the first in-man study. Pancreas, we are just starting to look in more detail at the pancreas and treating pancreatic tumors. We're doing 2 studies now. One is ablation and one is targeted drug delivery. Professor Wu had previously treated patients with unresectable pancreatic cancer with abdominal pain, and found the pain relief happened in all the patients. It wasn't a cure, but did increase survival. Here's one that we've just done in Oxford with pancreatic cancer, with maybe a little bit difficult to see, but there is uptake there before HIFU, and uptake has gone post HIFU. I think this is very interesting for everybody who is working in HIFU. It is actually a quote by Theodore Roosevelt. I'll let you read the Chinese while I read the English. It is not the critic who counts, not the man who points out how the strong man stumbles, or where the doer of deeds could have done them better. The credit belongs to the man who is actually in the arena, whose face is marred by dust and sweat and blood, who strives valiantly, who errs, who comes short again and again, because there is no effort without error and shortcoming, but who does actually strive to do the deeds, who knows the great enthusiasms, the great devotions, who spends himself in a worthy cause, who at the best knows in the end the triumph of high achievement, and who at the worst, if he fails, at least fails while daring greatly, so that his place shall never be with those cold and timid souls who neither know victory nor defeat. I think that's a wonderful statement for HIFU, because HIFU has been difficult. It's been difficult in the UK to get national increase and uptake for it, but it is coming. And I think it's all credit to those who have developed it, especially in China, for the persistence in doing it. It's easy to criticize things. It is much more difficult to be the person who is developing them against difficult obstacles. So just finally, my acknowledgements. It's been a big team in Oxford. We're, of course, incredibly grateful to Zibiao Wang and Rosie Zing and all the team at the National Engineering Research Center in Chongqing, China. It's been a fantastic collaboration over the last 20 years, and I hope it's ongoing. Gail Tahar has done a lot of work in the UK on that, and we work with her. And we have a big team in Oxford, preclinical and clinical. So thank you very much. And I hope that before long, I'll be able to come and see you in person again.